Dear sweet Granny Vanga had a prediction for just about everything. Is Vanga's prediction that by 2088, the Earth will be exposed to a new strain of virus, unlike any other experience before, allegedly capable of aging a human being in a matter of seconds. Now, it's not known how the virus spreads or manifests, just that once you're infected, you'll age up rapidly, and the next thing you know, you'll be in a retirement castle. Sounds very useful if you're trying to get into an R-rated movie as a kid, and horrifying under literally any other context. Now, if Vanga's prediction is already making your hair go prematurely gray, you should know that she also predicted by the year 2046 that humans would live well past 100 with a combination of organ transplants and cybernetic parts, so maybe aging up isn't that big a deal. Maybe by then technology will have advanced enough and we can just flip a switch and age back down like Benjamin Button. At least we've got upwards of the next 60 years to get a handle on this. Allegedly by the year 2097 the disease is eradicated. Or maybe we can all just improve our skincare routines a little bit. I hear removing wrinkles does wonders to reverse the aging process.
Number 4. Aliens. Vangelia has hit the nail on the head a couple of times now, huh? Why aren't there more people talking about her? We need some Netflix budget original movies about her, people. Let's go. It's scary to think that beyond the grave, there have been people throughout our history who still continue to defy the odds. She's the Nostradamus of our time. Well, apparently she's called a couple things beyond our galaxy as well, and recently, quote, the invasion of Earth by aliens with the arrival of an asteroid. Yeah, she just called that. I got about 46 hours last night on Reddit alone of aliens zipping around our atmosphere, but she's specific. She added asteroids into the mix. The blind mystic alleged that an asteroid named Oumuamua would be sent by aliens to seek life out on planet Earth. Well, it just so happens there, Baba, that Avian at the University of Harvard and the Galileo project, yeah, they're convinced themselves as well. And remember that rock anomaly that buzzed through our orbit and then out again in 2017? Again? Yeah, like nobody's talking about this. How did she predict the name though? Like, can we get a deep dive on that? Is that true? She also predicts that by 2130, all civilizations will learn how to live underwater with the help of aliens. In other words, we're sending underwater probes to Europa next year, so I don't know, maybe? Baba Vanga smack dab in 2023 predicts that somehow the Earth's orbit will, quote, change. I mean, if we do that, the planet will be a total cataclysm, but maybe she was talking about NASA's DART program that just smashed into an asteroid like last week?
Change in the Earth's orbit. There's a lot of wonderful things to like about the planet Earth. Lush fields, flowing water, and its orbit exactly where it should be, which is quite an underrated but fantastic trait of the big blue marble we call home. Baba Vanga made another worrying prediction about the state of the Earth for 2023. She predicted that somehow something is going to knock Earth off of its orbit forever. Now, it should go without saying that something knocking Earth off of its orbit would be very bad. If Earth somehow was thrown off its orbit by some terrible force, it would wreak incalculable havoc. Countries would be thrown into cycles of days and nights that would last not for hours, but for months at a time. Think of the damage that would be caused. Unending daylight would lead to mass sleep deprivation, global anxiety, as well as incalculable damage to our flora, fauna, and wildlife. Crops would be ravaged and burnt, leading to a global famine. Unending days would lead to temperatures doubling, melting the ice caps at an even faster rate than they already are. This would result in massively rising sea levels and the flooding of coastal cities. Unending night wouldn't be much better, as it would make things very cold, and plant life would have no way to achieve the necessary photosynthesis, resulting in crop failures and once again, countless deaths. Interestingly, this is a recognized phenomenon called a polar night, and there's a town in Norway that experiences something like this. In Tromsø, the sun doesn't rise from November to January. While this is fine for a Norwegian town, a polar night taking place in the bread bowl is a recipe for disaster, and that's not even mentioning how much easier that would make it for vampires to attack us. Number 2. A solar storm. With all the rather dire predictions made by Baba Vanga, it could be tempting to call her a pessimist. One of her more devastating predictions for the year ahead is that we will experience what is known as a solar storm. A solar storm refers to phenomena taking place on the surface of the sun, such as coronal mass ejections or solar flares. If one of these coronal mass ejections were to reach Earth, it would cause a geomagnetic storm that would have horrible consequences for our technology-reliant world. This kind of storm has happened before on Earth in 1859 in what has since been called the Carrington event, due to the work of astronomer Richard Carrington. It resulted in telegraph networks being knocked out, as well as people using electronics being electrocuted, and even some pretty nasty fires. But it would be much worse if it happened today. Imagine, if you will, a world where all of the technology you take for granted was suddenly fried and unusable. Suddenly, internet access and records would be lost. Communication systems that we have come to rely on to keep our world running would become useless blocks of dead machinery. A world of darkness where chaos reigns and the financial markets are suddenly put into a dramatic tailspin that we could not even begin to reverse the effects of for years. Think of the chaos that took place relatively recently in Texas when the power grid went down, and imagine what would happen if that took place all over the world. The effect of this happening now could be no less than the total collapse of modern society. This is one of the most plausible predictions made by Baba Vanga, as some scientists say that since this kind of solar activity has happened before, we are overdue for it to happen again, and that is a matter not of if, but rather of when it happens. Considering the disastrous global consequences of one of these severe solar storms, let us hope that Baba Vanga is incorrect in her prediction that this will happen in 2023. Number 1. An alien invasion. One of Baba Vanga's most surprising predictions for 2023 is that this is the year we will make contact with visitors from another world. Unfortunately for us, these visitors will apparently not be coming in peace. She says that aliens will attack the Earth, and that during their invasion they will use technology in order to prevent us from using electricity for 3 days and 3 nights, and that the Earth will be plunged into total darkness, with neither the moon or the stars being visible. We've already gone over how reliant we are on technology in the previous entry, so imagine how difficult it would be for us to suddenly be thrown back to the Stone Age, and then have to try and fight an alien race who have extremely advanced technology, as well as a desire to kill us. Baba Vanga claims that this will not be the end of the species as a whole, and that 10,000 of us will survive. But considering that we currently have a planet-wide population of 7.8 billion people, 10,000 survivors indicates only a 1.28% survival rate, meaning that for all practical purposes, it would be the end of the world as we know it. Apparently, peace with extraterrestrials is something we will eventually achieve, as Baba Vanga predicts that in the year 2130, aliens will be helping us to construct underwater cities, which will manage to become autonomous by producing their own power and food by 2195. These underwater cities are even more impressive when you consider that Baba Vanga also predicts that the Earth will become dry and desertified by 2170. Baba Vanga also predicts that in the year 2288, humanity will discover time travel, and that this is when aliens and humans will make contact. Which is interesting, as she already said that the first contact in war with the aliens would happen 265 years prior. And if this is first contact, who are the aliens helping us build the underwater cities on the dry desert planet of Earth 158 years earlier in 2130? Do all these contradictions have anything to do with the time travel we will discover? Truly, Baba Vanga gets more and more mysterious as time goes by.
Number 5 on this list is an alien attack. Baba Vanga believes that in 2022 we will make our first confirmed public communication with aliens, and that it won't go as well as we hope. She says that we will interact with these intelligent beings and that they will send ships to Earth and bomb our cities and take humans as their captives. Now in April 2022, the Defense Department of the United States released videos of what was called an unidentified aerial phenomena. If you've ever seen the video, then you know that the object was not flying in any way that our technology currently can. It was moving around almost like a dragonfly could, moving seamlessly through the air at extremely fast speeds. Many people have speculated that this was the work of aliens, and as of right now we don't have any human explanation for it. It should also be noted that we are always sending out communication waves into space to see if we get anything back. Would I be surprised if 2022 was the year that we got something back? Well, yeah, no, I probably would, but I can also see the reality of it happening as well. I also want to point out that our definition of alien kind of implies that something from a different world will come and take over, and that's also what Baba Vanga has insinuated. However, what about AI?
artificial intelligence is a completely different way of thinking than we have, and therefore alien to our human brains. I'm not just pulling this out of thin air either, but some experts have started to refer to artificial intelligence as another alien being as it gets smarter and smarter. I could totally see a reality where AI gets smart enough and begins some type of attack on the human race. This wouldn't really fit into the whole narrative of Baba Vanga though, because she did state that humans would be taken as captives, but she's also been very vague with some of her predictions before. I think that this prediction is slightly less likely than some of the other ones we're going to talk about, but I can by no means rule it out and have to acknowledge the fact that it might happen. Number 4 on this list is severe famine. Baba Vanga believes that in 2022 severe famine will ravage the world and lead to extreme conflicts that rack up the death toll. Now I want to point out that famine is nothing new, and there are a lot of countries that are suffering from this right now. Nigeria, South Sudan, Somalia, these are just a few. These are all countries where a large part of the population doesn't have regular access to food, and hunger is a daily struggle for these people. And that's just to name a few. However, Baba Vanga's prediction takes it a step further, and she believes that this famine will impact a greater portion of the world. She believes that this will happen due to climate change related issues. Climate change has been known to cause problems for the development and upkeep of food before. This manifests itself in a variety of different ways. One is the drastic increase of storms. Climate change causes heavy and dangerous storms to appear more frequently, and this will obviously harm any crops that are growing and damage that land where those crops were intended to grow. Higher CO2 levels, and this is something that I actually didn't know, but they reduce the nutritional value of crops that were growing. So even if you grow them and you have high CO2 levels, then you're not going to get nearly as much nutrients as you would have gotten if there was less CO2. I don't want to touch on this one too much because we're going to talk about it in a later entry, but water and the lack of water will make it near impossible to grow any crops. Climate-related famine is certainly a possibility and something that I honestly think will happen. I'm not sure if we're going to see it to the scale that Baba Vanga predicts, but I definitely believe that the places that are already struggling, such as the ones that I mentioned earlier, will sadly continue to do so and probably get worse.
Number 3, virtual reality takeover. Hey, what's your favorite reality? Mine is occasionally this one, although I am pretty partial to some synthetic realities as well. It definitely seems like over the last few years I've spent more time inside digital worlds than I have paying attention to the world around me. I mean, can you blame me? Someone had to collect all those Korok seeds. Well, according to Baba Vanga, maybe we're all going to be spending a lot more time hooked up into our digital worlds. Vanga predicts that humanity is going to start absorbing itself into a virtual world. She said in 2022, people would spend more time online and in screens more than ever. Typical grandmother. It's hard to tell her she's wrong though. I mean, you're on a screen right now and I'm talking into a screen right now. We've seen the world become more online than ever in the past few years. Baba Vanga, you would have absolutely loved Black Mirror. They made like 5 seasons of that show. It was basically all about this. You don't really need to be a blind mystic with a gift for prophecy to predict that virtual reality is coming. I mean, Meta has made no secret about how they believe the metaverse to be the next greatest leap in human advancement. Although, if you want my advice, I think the visuals still need a little tweaking because I'm not sure that I want to leave behind all the beauty of the real human experience just to go live in a simulated reality where everything looks like I'm trapped in the loading screen for Wii Sports Bowling forever. Investors and tech startups are racing to be the one to perfect the metaverse, and I do think we'll get there eventually, 2007 graphics notwithstanding. Once we've plundered this beautiful world for all its natural resources and drained the seas and stars, I think we'll all come aboard Mark Zuckerberg's cold, desolate ark and live hooked up into the machine spirit. I'm very optimistic about the future, if you couldn't tell that. Number 2, water scarcity. What is the most important resource humanity has? Cadbury cream eggs? No. It's water, of course. As much as we think of water as an infinitely replenishing resource, we're running out of it faster than any of us would ever care to admit. Only 3% of all water on the world is fresh water, and 2/3 of that water is tucked away in frozen glaciers. The World Wildlife Foundation dictates that somewhere around 2.7 billion people find water scarce for at least 1 month of the year. Baba Vanga predicted predicted that by 2022, the world would experience a global drought, leading to water shortages internationally. I mean, without it, we're nothing. And unless we all want to start wearing still suits like Dune, drinking our urine and sweat, we should probably try and do something about it, you know? Something on a big global scale, maybe, not just paper straws. Countries across the world are already experiencing shortages. It goes hand in hand with the rising temperatures seen globally, with temperatures in Europe nearing towards 50 degrees. The UK this year experienced one of its hottest summers it had ever seen, and this year our July was the 6th hottest July on record. Like ever. Like since they started writing down information about how hot it was. This is one of those times where being really high up on a hottest list is not actually a good thing. Now, much like most people, I absolutely loved Mad Max Fury Road. But I think the parts that I thought were really cool were the cool cars and the leather jackets and punching guys in the sand, and not the part where post-apocalyptic tyrant warlords control the world by hoarding what limited water exists and oppressing the downtrodden. So I'd like to avoid that if we can. Also, I can't drive, so I don't really know how long I would last in the wasteland. Number 1, alien invasion. Our number 1 spot is also Vanga's most out there prediction, like out of this world out there. In 2022, Baba Vanga claims that an alien life is going to arrive on Earth traveling on an asteroid called Oumuamua to scope out the situation here. The name is Hawaiian in origin, meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. Kind of feel like if there was ever an asteroid that would very likely contain an envoy of visitors from another planet, it would have to be that one. I mean, listen to that name. Now, this asteroid is real, and it is an object from another solar system altogether, passing through for an intergalactic sightseeing tour. Now, not to burst your bubble too much, but this asteroid actually has already passed through Earth's orbit back in 2017, but I guess they didn't see anything too worthwhile yet. You know what, aliens, I gotta say, this isn't really the best time for us to have company right now over. As I've listed off in this video, we're kind of dealing with some problems right now. We're still kind of cleaning up a little bit, you know. Give us some notice. We just need to clean out the cupboards, fix a few of our global catastrophes, end all conflicts, get everybody to be friends, and then we can have you guys over. Recently, NASA just deflected an asteroid in a historic moment, successfully deflecting an asteroid's course. Probably a huge flex to the aliens, letting them know straight up, hey, if you guys want to swing by on an asteroid and we're not feeling it, we can just push you out of the way with an interplanetary do not disturb sign. But don't feel too threatened about that, please, aliens. We were just trying out our new asteroid deflecting software. We're not the most friendly species, but if you guys want to come check out what we're doing, we can meet in the middle somewhere, maybe on some neutral ground. Maybe the moon. We put a flag up there, but I promise that's not ours. You know, we can just share that. Number 5 on our list for scary predictions from the Princess of Prognostication for 2023 is a nuclear meltdown. Vanga predicted that soon another nuclear meltdown will occur at a currently unnamed nuclear power plant that will explode. Followers of Vanga have cited Chernobyl as proof of the oracle's soothsaying, believing that she predicted it years before it occurred. Now, if you need anyone to spell out just how bad a nuclear meltdown would be, luckily, and I use that term extremely lightly, we have Chernobyl as a harrowing monument to the dangers of untethered nuclear power. Chernobyl, if you don't know from not having seen the HBO TV show or the Call of Duty 4 level, which is where I get most of my information about world issues and politics, was a nuclear power plant outside of Pripyat that experienced a horrific meltdown. When Chernobyl's reactor burst, the blast was equivalent to the force of 500 nuclear explosions. Now, 1 is already just about the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. 2 is pretty bad. 500 is inconceivable. So I don't think anyone among us wants another one. There is obviously some worry with current conflicts over Europe that this could be what Baba Vanga is predicting. Outside forces and damage could trigger a chain reaction that leads to severe, long-lasting consequences. Chernobyl still isn't habitable by humans, and scientists estimate it won't be for the next 20,000 years. Which is a shame because honestly it does look like it could be a cool place to live. The sites are pretty cool. We can't afford another Chernobyl anywhere in the world with everything going on. Number 4, bioweaponry. I think we've all lived through enough biological disasters for one lifetime, right? I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with a bottle of hand sanitizer near me. Well, Vanga warns us that there could still be more on the horizon. One of her predictions for the near future is that she has prophesized that an unnamed big country will carry out bioweaponry research on human beings. She theorized that hundreds of thousands of people will be affected by these sinister experiments and that it could leak out into the rest of the world. Now, again, this goes without saying, but biological weaponry is banned worldwide. It's one of those things that really gets you into trouble. I mean, in 8th grade, I threw a booger at a girl and I was charged by the United Nations for biological warfare. The United Nations effectively bans any experiments or any conduct, such as stockpiling viruses and dangerous bacteria, but, let's be honest, the UN says a lot of things and that doesn't stop everybody. There are some who theorize that bioweaponry is already being researched across the globe secretly. Things like weaponized viruses or chemical warfare, all very illegal, all very scary. I have played way too many of the Resident Evil games in my lifetime to not be terrified of bioweaponry. We've touched a bit on this subject on previous videos about Baba Vanga, but Baba Vanga predicted as well in 2022 that we would experience a new virus and a new pandemic. Recently, in 2021, researchers in Siberia uncovered 33 strains of novel viruses encased perfectly in ice, samples over 15,000 years old. Could this be what Vanga is referring to here? Personally, I think a secret organization making a bioweapon out of generations old viruses sounds way too much like the plot to a scary horror movie or video game than it does real life, so I'm very much hoping that Baba Vanga was wrong about this one. I mean, she's not always right, You need a couple of them to be wrong to make the real ones stick out all the more. Number 3. Another of her predictions say that by the year 2046, technology will have advanced sufficiently enough that the average life expectancy will raise past 100 due to rises in organ transplant technology and prosthetic and cybernetic implants. Now that is something I can really get into. I have been wanting cybernetic everything since I saw Luke get that sweet robot hand in Star Wars. This technology has been advancing with every year, with the stuff of former sci-fi legend becoming more and more practical and real. The prediction goes on to state that in the near future, organs will be grown and sold like any other product, developed en masse and distributed internationally. The ramifications of that would be unbelievable. Imagine for a minute how many illnesses and diseases would just disappear overnight if you were able to order a new kidney on Amazon and have it delivered to your house the next day. While we're not quite at the level where we're 3D printing lungs and shipping them out, scientists have actually been experimenting with growing human organs in labs, with liver buds being grown from human stem cells. Now the technology is still pretty far off, with these little mini organoids lacking key features that real organs do, like, growing, mostly being used to study for now, but in some cases, these lab-grown organs have actually been transplanted into mice successfully. So who's to say what progress will look like in the next 10 years' time? Well, Baba Vanga, I guess she's the one to say, that's why we're doing this. Number 2. Another of Baba's predictions is that the world will experience something called a solar tsunami. And if the name isn't enough of an indicator, it really does not sound that pleasant. So if you are picturing a delightful wave of summer sun, why don't you keep thinking that? A solar storm is a burst of energy from the sun which sends electrical charges, magnetic fields, and radiation towards the Earth. This effect is what creates the northern lights, which are very pretty, but the solar tsunami Vanga predicted would be one of cataclysmic proportions, claiming that it would be powerful as billions upon billions of nuclear weapons descending on the Earth. Solar storms are predicted to cause mass damage to technology, causing worldwide blackouts, with some doomsayers going so far as to say that it could cause a worldwide technological shutdown, sending humanity back to the Dark Ages. Might be the first thing to get me off my phone for 5 minutes, so maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. This kind of thing does occur already on a much smaller scale, with some smaller solar waves causing radio blackouts, but luckily, nothing on a massive scale of a full-blown solar tsunami has occurred yet. Baba Vanga never gave a time or a date for when she thought the solar tsunami would occur, just that it was on the horizon for humanity, and we should be expecting it, I guess, sometime. So I guess keep checking the weather app, and if it shuts down while you're checking it, and all the lights turn off in your house, yeah, that's probably a bad sign. Maybe, I don't know, get into the bunker, stock up on tuna and beans. Number 1. I know, we just did a virus. Well, keep the masks around maybe. Because before her passing, Baba Vanga predicted that due to climate change melting the ice around the world, a new virus would be discovered in Siberia and the world would experience another pandemic. I don't know, a sequel that's similar to the first? I feel like it's been done before, kind of played out. Well, in July 2021, a team of researchers discovered within 2 samples of ice from the Tibetan Plateau that contained ancient viruses, locked away and preserved in the virus like the mosquito from Jurassic Park in the amber. According to the analysts, these ice samples were at least 15,000 years old. The researchers also discovered embedded within the ice samples were 33 viral genetic codes. While 4 of the codes were recognized viruses that usually attack bacteria, the remaining 28 genetic codes were novel, meaning that this is the first time they've been discovered, like a time capsule just full of stuff to make you cough.
In 5th place, we have a solar storm. So one of the most alarming 2023 predictions from Vanga has to do with a solar storm, which could have, catastrophic consequences. For reference, the term solar storm can refer to several phenomena on the sun's surface, including solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CME for short. The latter are vast eruptions of plasma that are capable of reaching the Earth, causing geomagnetic storms that, could potentially fry power grids and cause widespread havoc. Yeah, no biggie, right? The most dramatic example in recorded history was the Carrington event of 1859. Named after British astronomer Richard Carrington, it knocked out telegraph networks and even caused fires and electric shocks. If such an event were to happen, say today, in our electrified world, the effects on communications, services, and everyday lives would be almost unfathomable. Experts believe the damage to worldwide infrastructures could lead to blackouts that last for years, triggering societal chaos and causing financial markets to go into a tailspin that would dwarf anything seen before. So, I sorta kinda hate to say it, but this prediction is kind of already coming true. Based on observations made by Dr. Erica Palmario, a research specialist who specializes in, this sort of thing, there is a magnetic filament near the equator of the sun that is currently bustling with a huge amount of magnetic field lines. This means that it can soon erupt and send another wave of solar storm towards our planet. Presence of such powerful streamers is an indication of the increased solar activity, which was not predicted by many forecasters for solar cycle 25, so the current solar cycle. If the streamer goes out, it will release a huge amount of radiation and magnetic energy that can disrupt shortwave radio communication on Earth and, cause a dangerous solar storm. We've already had 2 severe geomagnetic storms this year, the most recent being on April 21st when a CME erupted from the sun, spewing out a burst of plasma that raced towards Earth at nearly 2 million miles per hour. In 4th place, we have a bioweapon atrocity. Because if scary solar stuff didn't scare anyone enough, bioweapons should do the trick. Yep, Vanga had a vision of bioweapons tests being carried out by a big country in 2023. This is easily one of the more disturbing predictions ever provided by the prophetess. It also seems relevant to the current, heated geopolitical context. So this had me wondering, technically what all falls under the range of, bioweapons? Might as well prepare for the worst. So biological and toxin weapons are either microorganisms like virus, bacteria, or fungi, or toxic substances produced by living organisms that are produced and released deliberately to cause disease and death in humans, animals, or plants. Biological agents like anthrax, botulinum toxin, and plague can pose a difficult public health challenge, causing, large numbers of deaths in a short amount of time. Biological agents which are capable of secondary transmission can lead to epidemics, but I feel like we all already knew that thanks to recent history. An attack involving a biological agent may mimic a natural event, which may complicate the public health assessment and response. High-threat pathogen laboratories can be targeted, which might lead to serious public health consequences. Biological weapons form a subset of a larger class of weapons, sometimes referred to as unconventional weapons, or weapons of mass destruction, which also includes, chemical, nuclear, and radiological weapons. It's impossible to know what nation Vanga had in mind, and it's unclear what the extent of such experiments might be. Could it involve, stockpiled viruses? Perhaps some weaponized variant that runs the risk of escaping the lab environment? Even if such a leak didn't occur, these kinds of experiments would presumably violate the Biological Weapons Convention, which bans the development, acquisition, transfer, stockpiling, and production of toxins and agents. There is precedent for violation though, with the convention having been previously broken by countries, such as Russia, and Iraq. The use of biological agents in armed conflict is technically a war crime, but defensive biological research for prophylactic, protective, or other peaceful purposes is not prohibited by the BWC, so you can see how a country can sadly skirt around this. Fun fact, in case y'all weren't, freaked out enough, biological weapons are difficult to detect, economical, and easy to use, making them pretty appealing to bad guys. The cost of a biological weapon is estimated to be about 0.05% the cost of a conventional weapon in order to produce similar numbers of mass casualties per kilometer square. Also, their production is very easy as common technology can be used to produce biological warfare agents like that used in production of vaccines, foods, spray devices, beverages, and antibiotics. A major factor in biological warfare that attracts bad guys is that they can easily escape before any kind of agency have even started their investigation. This is because the potential organism has an incubation period of 3 to 7 days, after which the results begin to appear. appear, thereby giving them a lead. A technique called clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeat is now so cheap and widely available that scientists fear that amateurs will start experimenting with them. But, no biggie.
In the year 2111, Vanga predicts that we will start to cast off the weakness of our flesh and embrace the strength and certainty of steel to claim the purity of the blessed machine. Yes, of course, Vanga speaks to the Omnissiah and says that in the next century, technology and medical science will have advanced so sufficiently that humanity will become more mechanical than organic, which could take a little adjusting. Might want to watch yourself shaking hands if the guy you're shaking hands with has a titanium alloy with a hydraulic piston grip. Now, maybe I'm in a minority here, but this is actually a prediction I can very much get down with. I have been wanting cybernetic parts for pretty much as long as I can remember. I would probably redo all of this and chip in as much as possible. It goes in line with Vanga's prediction of humanity living to unreached life expectancy and achieving wondrous strides in science and technology. Of all of Vanga's many predictions, this one seems the most likely to me. I mean, we're already making such incredible leaps in prosthetic technology. Things like a cybernetic hand, which once seemed like something out of Star Wars make-believe, but in the last decade we've already seen advancements in the field of prosthetics, like limbs that move and ambulate like any other limb, controlled by the brain. And even recently, scientists and specialists have started to make progress on cybernetic hands capable of feeling touch, responding to heat. It's more likely than not that by the year 2111, like she outlined, we will start to see implants like that commonplace. Of course, who's to say what kind of new social problems that'll cause? Cybernetic discrimination? Ethics debates? All I know is that if we are going to start enhancing ourselves and mechanically alternating ourselves, I definitely want in immediately.
Number 2, washed up. Yeah, so again, the Long Island medium has got nothing on Baba Vanga. Speaking of Long Islands, some are disappearing and some are being created as we speak right now. Hurricane Ian is absolutely devastating the south right now, blasting all kinds of mess through the Golden Coast. Tsunamis and flooding is one of Baba Vanga's more worrying predictions though, as she has predicted a cataclysmic tsunami that would strike this year. Yeah. Thanks for the heads up, I guess? Baba is said to have first warned the world of a deadly 2004 tsunami that unfortunately took more than 200,000 lives in Southeast Asia. She then said to have warned of a similar cataclysmic event in the future in 2021, quote, "Difficult times will come, people will be divided by their faith, we are witnessing devastating events that will change in fate the destiny of our humanity," end quote. That just sounds like a Michael Bay movie summary. This tsunami prediction was said to hit in 2020, then 2021. Are we just late with all these floods down south right now on the calendar wise? Like, did we forget a leap year here or there? What's going on? Satellite images from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration showed beach houses, cottages, even hotels on the shores of Florida that have been demolished by flooding waters. Hit the Carolinas, Virginia, Florida, Cuba, Puerto Rico. More than 2,000 people have since been rescued, according to Florida's emergency, as a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 150 miles an hour. The National Guard, the Coast Guard, they're both working together right now. Ian is expected to slowly weaken this week as it heads inland to the north, but supposed to bring heavy rain and flooding to the mid-Atlantic. A flood watch is now in effect for a large portion of the south. Does it say anywhere that we make it out of this mess? Fires, floods, aliens, like give us a place to donate, would ya?
Our number one spot for the scariest prediction by Baba Vanga is, well, the outright end of the universe. That's kind of a hard one to top. Now don't run to the calendar just to check yet how long we've got left, because some good news is that even if Baba Vanga is correct, it won't happen in your lifetime, or your kid's lifetime, or your grandkid's lifetime, or your great-grandkid's lifetime, with Vanga predicting that the end of all of this and everything is going to happen around the year 5709. So we got a long way off to go before that happens. Before the curtains close on this whole existence thing, Vanga predicts that things are going to get pretty wild before the end. Apparently by the year 5706, our knowledge of the stars will be so vast that we'll be able to chart the entire known universe right to the edge of the galaxy. A few years later, in the year 5078, Vanga predicts that we're going to try and venture out past the Milky Way to see what else there is in our ever-expanding cosmos, and try to explore outside of our galaxy. Now, allegedly 60% of the human population volunteers to brave the new frontier past Andromeda, while the remaining 40% feel pretty comfortable in this universe and elect to stay at home. I'm probably the same way, to be honest. If I'm still ticking around 5078, I'm probably just gonna stick around here. This universe has all my stuff in it. Vanga interestingly didn't specify how it would end. I guess some things have to be left up for surprises. I wouldn't want the ending spoiled anyway. Just that in 5709, it would be the end of human civilization and the Earth as we know it. It's stressful, definitely, but at least it's not happening for a little bit, you know? we've got some time to plan.
Number 5. Oh great, more viruses. Considering how ill-prepared we turned out to be for the last super virus that ravaged the world, the idea of more viruses in the future is somehow equal parts terrifying and exhausting. Baba Vanga actually predicts a few different viruses will come to light, but the soonest will not affect humans, though it is still disturbing. According to Baba, in 2023, birds will be subjected to a deadly virus that will transmit through both the air and contaminated water. It will spread incredibly fast, wiping out entire flocks in weeks and leaving many species of bird on the brink of extinction. Scientists will apparently scramble to try and find a cure for our avian friends, but the now common sight of a flock of birds flying through the air will become a distant memory. This doesn't directly affect humans, but considering how much chicken we as a species eat, this will be a tough loss if it comes to pass. The next virus Baba Vanga predicts will apparently take hold in 2088 and will be unlike anything we've ever seen. It won't cause humans to have trouble breathing or for their immune systems to be compromised, but will apparently cause people to age extremely rapidly, resulting in a young person in their 20s looking like a senior citizen within a few seconds. This virus will apparently be an issue for humanity for almost 10 years, when it is apparently exterminated in 2097. We will then apparently get a break from pandemics until the year 2256, when a rocket sent to explore the deepest parts of the cosmos will return to Earth carrying an intergalactic virus. Hopefully, this virus won't be too intense, as a universal cure for all diseases isn't predicted until the year 4304. Though by then, Baba Vanga says that humans will no longer live on Earth, but on Mars, so make of that what you will. Number 4. A dangerous bioweapon. In 1925, the Geneva Convention decided to ban the use of biological weapons in war, with all the countries making a promise to never, under any circumstances, develop, produce, stockpile, or otherwise acquire or retain microbial or other biological agents or toxins, whatever their origin or method of production, of types and in quantities that have no justification for prophylactic, protective, or other peaceful purposes. They also agreed not to develop weapons, equipment, or means of delivery designed to use such agents or toxins for hostile purposes, or in armed combat. For the most part, the countries of the world have stuck to this agreement, other than some outliers such as the Soviet Union and Iraq. Unfortunately, one of Baba Vanga's other predictions for 2023 says that a large country will begin testing a new bioweapon. She is sparse on the details, but if this is true, which of the large nations will be carrying out the test? Will it be Russia, the United States, China? Who? And what is the nature of this bioweapon? Does it contain lab-grown viruses that could wreak havoc on humanity, or some other deadly mutagen that could permanently alter the DNA of its victims? Although she has had a few predictions that came true, Baba Vanga also said that World War III would begin in 2010, and that by 2016, Europe would become an empty wasteland. So hopefully, this is one of the predictions that turns out to not be true, as the idea of chemical weapons being unleashed this year is simply too much for me to deal with on top of everything else going on. Number 3. A series of viruses. Considering how ill-prepared we turned out to be for the last super virus that ravaged the world, the idea of more viruses in the future is somehow equal parts terrifying and exhausting. Baba Vanga actually predicts a few different viruses will come to light, but the soonest will not affect humans, though it is still disturbing. According to Baba Vanga, in 2023, birds will be subjected to a deadly virus that will transmit through both the air and contaminated water. It will spread incredibly fast, wiping out entire flocks in weeks and leaving many species of bird on the brink of extinction. Scientists will apparently scramble to try and find a cure for our avian friends, but the now common sight of a flock of birds flying through the air will become a distant memory. This doesn't directly affect humans, but considering how much chicken we as a species eat, this will be a tough loss if it comes to pass. Although that is the only virus predicted for this year, Baba Vanga has predicted that there will be a series of viruses over the coming decades, each one more serious than the last. The next virus Baba Vanga predicts will apparently take hold in 2088 and will be unlike anything we've ever seen. It won't cause humans to have trouble breathing or for their immune systems to be compromised, but will apparently cause people to age extremely rapidly, resulting in a young person in their 20s looking like a senior citizen within a few seconds. This virus will apparently be an issue for humanity for almost 10 years, when it is apparently exterminated in 2097. We will then apparently get a break from pandemics until the year 2256, when a rocket sent to explore the deepest parts of the cosmos will return to Earth carrying an intergalactic virus. Hopefully this virus won't be too intense, as a universal cure for all diseases isn't predicted until the year 4304, though by then Baba Vanga says that humans will no longer live on Earth, but on Mars. So, make of that what you will. Number 2, a change in the Earth's orbit. There's a lot of wonderful things to like about the planet Earth. Lush fields, flowing waters, and its orbit exactly where it should be, which is quite an underrated but fantastic trait of the big blue marble we call home. Baba Vanga made another worrying prediction about the state of the Earth for 2023. She predicted that somehow, something is going to knock Earth off of its orbit forever. The Earth's orbit has been altered before, but in this prediction, the alteration is going to be much more significant, causing much more widespread effects. Now, it should go without saying that something knocking Earth off of its orbit would be very bad. If Earth somehow was thrown off its orbit by some terrible force, it would wreak incalculable havoc. Countries would be thrown into cycles of days and nights that would not last for hours, but months at a time. Think of the damage that would cause. Unending daylight would lead to mass sleep deprivation, global anxiety, as well as incalculable damage to our flora and fauna and wildlife. Crops would be ravaged and burnt, leading to a global famine. Unending days would lead to temperatures doubling, melting the ice caps at an even faster rate than they already are. This would result in massively rising sea levels and the flooding of coastal cities. Unending night wouldn't be much better, as it would make things very cold, and plant life would have no way to achieve the necessary photosynthesis, resulting in crop failures and once again, countless deaths. Interestingly, this is a recognized phenomenon called a polar night, and there's a town in Norway that experiences something like this. In Tromsø, the sun doesn't rise from November to January. While this is fine for a Norwegian town, a polar night taking place in important farmland regions that are responsible for feeding massive portions of the population is a recipe for disaster, and that's not even mentioning how much easier that would make it for vampires to attack us. Number 1, an alien invasion. One of Baba Vanga's most surprising predictions for 2023 is that this is the year we will make contact with visitors from another world. Unfortunately for us, these visitors will apparently not be coming in peace. She says that aliens will attack the Earth, and that during their invasion, they will use technology in order to prevent us from using electricity for 3 days and 3 nights, and the Earth will be plunged into total darkness, with neither the moon or stars being visible. We've already gone over how reliant we are on technology in the solar storm entry, so imagine how difficult it would be for us to be suddenly thrown back to the Stone Age, and then have to try and fight an alien race who have extremely advanced technology, as well as a desire to kill us. Baba Vanga claims that this will not be the end of the species as a whole, and that 10,000 of us will survive. But considering that we currently have a planet-wide population of 7.8 billion people, 10,000 survivors indicates only a 1.28% survival rate, meaning that for all practical purposes, it would be the end of the world as we know it. Baba Vanga has predictions for humanity beyond this point, and some of them are truly incredible. They include things like the discovery of time travel, the colonization of other planets, underwater cities, and an eventual peace being made with the extraterrestrials. But considering that if her predictions come true, there's only a 1.28% chance that any of this will be relevant to you, there really is no need for me to get into those right now.
Number 5. One of the earliest on Baba's prediction list is that by 2023, Earth will have shifted sufficiently enough to alter its orbit. And we don't fully know what she means by that, but I can tell you that if Earth's orbit were to change at all, the consequences would be absolutely disastrous. I'm not entirely sure how Earth is supposed to shift orbit. Maybe we're all gonna get too heavy, we'll throw the gravity off, maybe we're jumping around too much. Anyway, the universe works in a very specific way. It's very finely crafted. Everything is exactly where it should be. And if that balance gets thrown off, it'll affect, well, just about everything. The Earth shifting its orbit would immediately result in increased temperatures, soaking the world in radiation. Increased temperatures would lead to glaciers melting, sea levels rising, and that usually leads into chaos across the globe. Of course, if we shifted off our orbit, it wouldn't stop there. We'd also experience a new ice age and crushing periods of extended darkness, which would spell disaster in ways we couldn't even comprehend on the ecosystems. And most worrisome of all, we would basically give vampires a key to the Earth. I have to assume that our position in the solar system is the only thing preventing them from taking over right now. Like I mentioned, this is supposedly supposed to occur in 2023, so luckily we can find out really soon if this one is coming true, and for all of our sakes, I sincerely hope not. Number 4. Another claim for 2023 is that we will experience the end of natural live births altogether. Vanga claimed that going forward, all birthing will be done in laboratories. World leaders will decree what the people of each nation should look like, and they will be able to finely tune their physical and appearances like we're all characters in The Sims. Well, that actually might be kind of fun. Do you think we'll be able to do that after we've already been born? Wouldn't mind customizing myself up a little bit, tighten up the jaw, add a couple cool scars, maybe one over the eye like Geralt. This one is definitely a bit out there compared to some of the other ones on the list, but there is some truth to the words. The birth rate is declining right now. In 1950, the birth rate was 36.9% per 1,000 people, while now it's only 18.5%. And some analysts predict by 2050 it could dip as low as 14.6%. So maybe in the future we will start to see more of a push towards this kind of thing. Lab birth and all that. That bit about world leaders deciding what their people look like though, I don't know about that. I feel like people would disagree with that. What if the current leader only wants children that look like Danny DeVito? You're really gonna wait 9 months for a Danny DeVito baby? A whole society of DeVitos run it? No, actually, the more I'm talking about this, I want this. This is a prediction I hope comes true.
Number 3 on this list is the further development of virtual reality. Now, I need to clarify this because obviously virtual reality will continue to develop. We've already seen major advancements in the last 5 years. Baba Vanga thinks that this is going to take a major leap in 2022 though. She dives straight into a Black Mirror episode and predicts that virtual reality is going to get so advanced that humans will get lost in the world and become trapped in it. Now, if this is going to happen, then a lot of things will need to change in terms of VR from right now. From my understanding of virtual reality, you throw something on your face, and even though you look and you feel as if you're in another place, you're still very aware of your real physical world. And if you ever wanted to, you could just take the virtual reality thing off your face, and then you're back to regular reality. So the way that they have it set up right now, I don't see any chance of you getting lost in another world because you could just leave whenever you felt like it. However, if we were to develop virtual reality to a point where you become unconscious, then I could see how this could work. I think that it would have to be something like in the movie Inception, where you pass out and then you enter this dreamlike state. If there was any way to upload your consciousness to a virtual reality world, then we could definitely get lost in it. For right now, I don't think this is going to happen in 2022, but I think that this is 100% something that could take place in the future. If you've ever watched or played any virtual reality stuff, then you'll notice that the graphics, they're certainly not the ones that we're used to when you're playing Xbox or PlayStation or something. Who knows, maybe the government has some virtual reality technology that is way more advanced than anything available to the public that I don't know about, and that gets released in 2022, and Baba Vanga's prediction does happen. I do feel though, like this one might take a few decades still. Number 2 on this list is the appearance of a very dangerous virus from a glacier. Now this is something that I'm going to be talking about in another video as well, but it's simply just too good and too realistic to not bring it up in this one. Baba Vanga believes that due to climate change, glaciers will melt, and in those glaciers a virus will be released that will ravage the planet. This is so scary, not only because COVID has just happened and is still happening, so diseases are pretty triggering to me, but because there is so much truth to this. I'm sure that we've all heard that glaciers are melting and the sea levels are rising due to climate change. This is already really damaging and bad for the environment, but these glaciers do carry viruses in them as well. Scientists who examine such things have taken samples from glaciers that are thousands of years old. In these samples, they have found traces of viruses and bacteria that have managed to survive in the ice during all of this time. The things that they've found are also unlike anything that we've ever seen before in other viruses. This is a big problem and something that we need to take note of. If we've never seen these viruses before, then our immune systems have no idea how to handle them. It's like a completely foreign language to our body that has no idea what it is or what it can do. Because of this, it could totally rip through the human race if the outbreak was big enough and it was a contagious virus. Learning a new language takes time, and our immune systems might not have that kind of time to adjust to these new diseases. It should also be noted that these viruses might not just affect humans, but maybe it affects animals or plants. Those things wouldn't have the defenses to deal with this either and might not be able to sustain themselves. This could collapse the whole ecosystem, which in turn could collapse the whole human race. Basically, this is something that needs to be dealt with ASAP because the damage it could cause could be irreversible. Number 1 on this list is a lack of drinking water. Baba Vanga has predicted that in 2022, the world will suffer from a lack of clean water, and that water will in turn become a very expensive and highly sought after resource. This prediction from Baba Vanga is honestly not that far-fetched at all, and I believe could have a lot of truth to it. The global population is rising every single day, and at the time of making this video, there is 7.75 billion people on the planet. That's almost a billion more than what we had in 2010, and this dramatic increase of the population will just continue to rise and rise. Every additional person that is born and living on this planet needs to have clean drinking water to survive, and as of right now, we are not replenishing that clean water as fast as we're using it up. Mexico City, one of the bigger cities in the world, is located on top of an ancient freshwater basin. This is not being refilled though, and as the city uses its water, it's beginning to sink. In fact, the city as a whole is sinking roughly 9 inches per year, which really starts to add up after a while if you think about it. California is going through something similar and has suffered a very serious drought over the last few years. Even after they got hit with some extremely heavy rainfall to counteract this, it still didn't do enough to refill what they had lost. We also have to factor in that fresh water isn't just used for our drinking, but also for the food that we eat. All of the vegetation that we grow requires fresh water to thrive. The animals that we breed, they need to drink water too. Basically, water is one of our most precious resources, and we are surely running out of it. A lack of drinking water would not only hurt our vegetation and us, but the amount of wars that it would incite and conflicts that it would cause, it would be massive. I can't say for certain that 2022 will be the year that it all comes crashing down, but Baba Vanga believes that it certainly could be.
Number 5. A dangerous bioweapon. In 1925, the Geneva Convention decided to ban the use of biological weapons in war, with all the countries making a promise to never, under any circumstances, develop, produce, stockpile, or otherwise acquire or retain microbial or other biological agents or toxins, whatever their origin or method of production, of types and in quantities that have no justification for prophylactic, protective, or other peaceful purposes. They also agreed not to develop weapons, equipment, or means of delivery designed to use such agents or toxins for hostile purposes or in armed combat. For the most part, the countries of the world have stuck to this agreement, other than some outliers such as the Soviet Union and Iraq. Unfortunately, one of Baba Vanga's predictions for 2023 says that a large country will begin testing a new bioweapon. She is sparse on the details, but if this is true, which of the large nations will be carrying out the test? Will it be Russia, the United States, China? Who? And what is the nature of this bioweapon? Does it contain lab-grown viruses that could wreak havoc on humanity? Or some other deadly mutagen that could permanently alter the DNA of its victims? Although she has had a few predictions that came true, Baba Vanga also said that World War III would begin in 2010, and that by 2016, Europe would become an empty wasteland. So, hopefully, this is one of the predictions that turns out not to be true, as the idea of chemical weapons being unleashed this year is simply too much for me to deal with, on top of everything else going on. Number 4. A solar storm. With all the rather dire predictions made by Baba Vanga, it could be tempting to call her a pessimist. One of her more devastating predictions for the year ahead is that we will experience what is known as a solar storm. A solar storm refers to phenomena taking place on the surface of the sun, such as coronal mass ejections or solar flares. If one of these coronal mass ejections were to reach Earth, it would cause a geomagnetic storm that would have horrible consequences for our technology-reliant world. This kind of storm has happened before on Earth in 1859, in what has since been called the Carrington event. Due to the work of astronomer Richard Carrington, it resulted in telegraph networks being knocked out, as well as people who were operating the telegraph machines being electrocuted, and even some pretty nasty fires. But it would be much worse if it happened today. Imagine, if you will, a world where all of the technology that you take for granted was suddenly fried and unusable. Suddenly, internet access and records would be lost. Communication systems that we have come to rely on to keep our world running would become useless blocks of dead machinery. A world of darkness where chaos reigns and the financial markets are suddenly put into a dramatic tailspin that we could not even begin to reverse the effects of for years. Think of the chaos that took place relatively recently in Texas when the power grid went down, and imagine what would happen if that took place all over the world. The effect of this happening now could be no less than the total collapse of modern society. This is one of the most plausible predictions made by Baba Vanga, as some scientists say that since this kind of solar activity has happened before, we are overdue for it to happen again, and that it is not a matter of if, but rather a matter of when it happens. Considering the disastrous global consequences of one of these severe solar storms, let us hope that Baba Vanga is incorrect in her prediction that this will happen in 2023.
In third place, we have a possible alien attack. Yeah, Baba Vanga predicted an alien invasion in 2023, with extraterrestrials being hostile and leading to the death of millions. Look, if the woman hadn't literally predicted 9/11, her own death, last year's UK drought, Obama and Trump being in power, and more, I'd be a little more iffy. She has an 85% accuracy rate for her premonitions. I could and ha over this all day if I'm being quite honest with you folks. On one hand, I definitely believe that aliens and UFOs are out there. There is way too much evidence to prove otherwise, and I've reported as such many times over here. But on the other hand, I don't want to believe that a hostile invasion will happen this year. I'm guessing maybe if a bioweapon comes into existence and we took off whatever is monitoring our planet, it could make sense. Or, they don't like how we're functioning as a world, which, the world's kind of a mess, but make sure to let me know down in the comments what you think. In second place, we have a possible change in the Earth's orbit. Could the path that Earth takes around the sun alter in 2023? So this is a particularly intriguing prophecy, and one that would have ramifications for everyone. Sure, yeah, it's one of the more far-fetched ones on today's list, but still equally as terrifying. Our planet travels 584 million miles around the sun every year, an epic voyage that is shaped like an oval rather than, like a perfect circle. The precise shape of the oval is influenced by other planets' gravitational forces, meaning the Earth's orbit can and does shift. However, such changes usually take place across many thousands of years. The effects of even, subtle, slow changes can be severe. For example, it's been theorized that an orbital shift contributed to the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, a period of intense global warming that took place almost 56 million years ago. If a radical shift occurred over the course of a single year, for whatever reason, the effects would be apocalyptic. There might be soaring temperatures and radiation levels with terrible environmental consequences. And that's putting aside the possibility that the orbital shift hinted at by Baba Vanga might be caused by an asteroid impact, which could very well be, like an extinction level event. Look, I love dinosaurs as much as the next person, but I don't really want to repeat their history. Also, I do not do well in extreme heat. At all. In first place, we have human birth in laboratories. Yep, the mystic lady predicted that human babies would be born in labs where their physical appearance and character could be controlled, completely altering the process of birth. Look, I can hear the doubters trying to laugh me off the internet right now, but pause, give me a second before you jump into the comment section. In December of last year, a new conceptual facility named Ectolife made some major waves in the news. Oh, why do you ask? They're advertising themselves as the world's first artificial womb facility, offering a way for parents to produce customized babies. Yeah, no, this isn't The Sims. this is reality. The concept is thanks to Hashem Al-Ghali, who is a science communicator and molecular biologist by trade. The concept of ectolife is allegedly based on over 50 years of groundbreaking scientific research. The facility would run on renewable energy and plans to house 75 labs, each equipped with up to 400 growth pods, or artificial wombs, which are designed to provide the same environment that is present inside a mother's womb. Parents will be able to keep track of their baby's growth and development through a screen on the pods that showcase real-time data, and that data will also be available to monitor through an app. The artificial intelligence-based system can be used to monitor the physical features of the baby and will report any potential genetic abnormalities. During the time of delivery, the baby can be removed from the pod with the push of a button. Now, the creator believes that the artificial womb facilities could become a reality in 10 years or so if ethical restrictions are removed, claiming that every feature mentioned in the concept is 100% science-based and has already been achieved by scientists and engineers. If that isn't good enough, he's also promising an elite package that would allow people to genetically engineer the embryo before implanting it into the artificial womb. This is all starting to get a little too sci-fi horror for my liking. Parents will be able to select their baby's level of intelligence, height, hair, eye color, physical strength, and skin tone. Oh, and somehow it will also let parents fix any inherited genetic diseases. And as someone with ADHD, I'd like to know the further definition of that term, thanks. Ectolife's goal is to provide an option for parents to have children without going through pregnancy or even conception. The creator claims the artificial womb facility could help countries facing the problem of a declining population, such as Japan, Bulgaria, and South Korea, among others. It will also aim to facilitate infertile couples to become parents of their own biological offspring. Before my eyes roll out of my head, some folks who consider themselves experts have been consulted in this, and claim the technology is not that far-fetched and could become a reality in the future. Andrew Shannon, a professional expert, has said that from a theoretical standpoint, it's possible and just a matter of providing a correct environment with fuel and oxygen, and he thinks that the technologies are there to be able to achieve that. He's mentioned that there are a lot of examples where babies come out of the womb extremely early and are very well looked after in incubators, which he compared to this,